Well, it is my pleasure to introduce our guest speakers for today. I'm so grateful that they would come down and join us. As you probably know, none of our guests get paid to come do this. They all volunteer their time. So Sarah and Brady have 3 kids, 2 twins. They have to arrange daycare, childcare, all those kinds of things to come be with us, but they're super excited to be here. So Sarah Townsend Davies is the founder and co-owner of the Piano Place, Utah's fastest growing private lesson music studio. Sarah started teaching piano lessons from her home in Draper, Utah, to as many as 70 students a week, when in 2016 she decided to expand by starting a studio. Today, the Piano Place has 6 locations along the Wasatch Front and more than 100 teachers on staff. So think about that, growing from your own private piano teacher, in-house business, to now over 100 teachers working for you. The Piano Place continues to grow, fueled by its mission to breathe new life into traditional music lessons. I actually have a niece who takes lessons from the Piano Place who doesn't even live in the state. So they're doing some cool things virtually. Before starting her business, Sarah was a featured pianist at Salt Lake's esteemed Roof Restaurant, where at age 16, she was one of the youngest musicians to ever be hired. Sarah went on to attend BYU, where she graduated with a degree in communications and emphasis in public relations. Upon graduation, she was hired on at a New York-based PR firm, Coltrane and Associates, where she worked with national accounts including Popeyes, Cold Stone Creamery, Protection One, eHarmony, and more. Sarah recently started a podcast called More Than Musicians, where she interviews successful artists and talks about all things music. Aside from her passion to help kids learn to love and stick with music, Sarah enjoys tennis, Pilates, traveling, and listening to podcasts. Sarah lives in Draper, Utah with her husband and co-owner Brady and their 3 kids, which includes 1 set of boy-girl twins. So please welcome Sarah and Brady Davies.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much. When I initially wrote that bio, Brady wasn't going to be able to come. So this is Brady. He has lots of great accomplishments too.
Very few.
No. But we are super excited to be here today. Thank you so much for having us. Raise your hand. Are any of you musicians? Whether that be amateur just for yourself, or do any of you like music just to listen to? Okay, good. I'm seeing a lot of hands, so we're amongst friends here. Well, I just am going to jump in, and I want to tell you a little bit about our background, and then we want to hopefully give you some things that you can walk away with from this lecture that will hopefully be inspirational to you, or that you'll be able to use as you pursue your own endeavors with business. If you're in this class, I'm assuming that that's something that's interesting to you. So to jump right in, we're going to give you a little timeline of our history. I grew up playing piano from when I was little. It was what our family did, and I took lessons until I was in 6th grade when, of course, I quit. That's the story that we hear all the time, is you take lessons and then you quit. And you guys might relate with that. But I ended up quitting, though when I quit, I still really, really liked playing piano. And so for 4 years, I just played what I liked to play. And that was really a lot by ear. It was Taylor Swift and singing along with it, and it was stuff like that. But as a senior in high school, I started taking with a more professional teacher down a more classical route, and I learned a lot from her. And because I had taken lessons with her, I was able to audition for an opening in a teaching position, or a playing position at the Roof Restaurant. Have you guys been to the Roof? It's in downtown Salt Lake, top floor of the Joseph Smith Memorial Building. Has an awesome view. The piano's like glass looking. It was an incredible experience. I was asked to do on-the-spot requests, and so at a moment's notice I had to be able to take someone's request and figure out how to play it. And so a lot of my playing is a mesh of a classical background with by-ear training, if that makes sense. So it was an awesome experience, met awesome people. Around that same time in high school, I started teaching. Just random people would hear that I could play piano, and so I started building a little clientele. And I kept that clientele in Draper, though I was commuting down to BYU for school and up to Salt Lake for work. Not long after May 2013, Brady and I, we of course met at BYU, we got married, and then we moved back to Draper. And so I was able to grow my clientele from 30 or so students on the side on weekends when I could get up to them to 70 students. I was teaching full time, and I was teaching almost 40 hours a week, which is, you're squeezing it into after school hours from 3 till like 10 p.m. So it was just a really intense schedule. But in October 2015, we had our first baby. Her name's Claire, and I just knew I couldn't maintain my schedule. Like, I was way too much teaching to be able to have any type of at-home life. And so this is where the idea for our studio started to form. And this is when I decided, this was in October, and I had told my students, okay, I'm going to take a 2-month maternity leave. Our daughter was actually born on Halloween morning. So 2-month maternity leave, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to start back up. So I knew I had 2 months to figure out what to do. Otherwise, I was going to lose this clientele that I had built. And so I hired a friend of mine from the Roof restaurant, and the two of us split my students, and we taught out of my home. This is when the Piano Place was born. I wanted it to feel more like a studio approach, but this was my drawing. I took out a piece of paper. This was our logo. I will never forget just drawing it, because it was already starting to form like what this could be. And so what happened is, by 3 weeks in, we had a waiting list of 30 students trying to get in with me and my friend. We were bursting out the seams, and I was like, okay, we're on to something here. So we ended up renting my parents' basement from them, and we built our clientele. By May that year, we had hired on more teachers, guitar and voice, and we were growing the studio slowly. And that May, we held our first recital, which had 6 one-hour sessions. So we were slowly growing. We fell in love with this awesome building in Draper. It's on the historic Fort Street. And we signed the lease. I will never forget Brady saying to me, how will we ever fill 5 rooms and pay the rent for this? And just something about the buzz around it made me know and made me feel like we could. So we did. And he didn't doubt me after that, did you? So anyway, we move into this new place, and it was incredible because we were filled to capacity in that 5-room facility before the semester was over. And so we ended up having to expand into another building just down the street. We're going to fast forward 5 years. So much has happened in that amount of time, but I don't want to bore you with the details. I do want to, however, show you kind of more of what our studio looks like today.
Welcome to the Piano Place, Utah's premier music lesson studio. Located in South Jordan, Draper, and Lehigh, the Piano Place offers private lessons for piano, guitar, voice, and violin students of all ages and experience. Inspiring lesson rooms, fun performance opportunities, awesome practice incentive programs, and a team of accomplished teachers are just a few of the things that we're doing to breathe new life into traditional music lessons. Where others fail to help students recognize achievement in music, the Piano Place thrives. Our proprietary lesson reporting app allows students and parents to receive instant lesson feedback, track progress on goals, and communicate ideas with their teachers. For families on the go, you can drop off multiple children at once, and everyone can be done in as little as 30 minutes. So whether you're a brand new beginner or a seasoned musician, come check us out today and experience the Piano Place difference. Call today and get your first lesson free.
So we actually made that video last year, and since then we have grown. I think it said 3 locations. Well, we now have 6 locations open and operating. As Russ said earlier, we have 127 employees right now. We have 4 stores set to open in the next calendar year. We've diversified our instruments. We now teach drums. We've written a kinder program for ages 2 through 6. In December of this year, we're going to be hosting our next recital, and we have 72 one-hour sessions to accommodate our more than 2,000 students. So we've grown, and we're excited to continue growing. Okay, come on over.
Oh, I'm getting torch patched over to me now.
Yes.
So, yes. Well, awesome. So everything that Sarah just talked about with being a musician, just think the opposite, and that's what I am. So I'm a music muggle, don't know anything. I was one of those kids that I took music lessons for just a few months, and I quit. Just didn't like it. Wasn't really my thing. And it's just funny how, life takes you down different paths, right? You think you're going to do one thing and you end up doing something, completely different. And that's been my experience, right? So I graduated from BYU in business strategy, and I immediately jumped into a really great job in real estate. And as Sarah was starting this, and as I was kind of helping her on the side and getting the piano place going, it was kind of a weird thing for me because I was a little bit, at times, embarrassed to say, to some of my friends I went to college with who were, they're working at Bain, they're getting their MBAs, to say, oh yeah, I run a music studio. We teach music lessons, and yes, I don't know anything about music. So it was kind of a hard thing to swallow and to do it, but at the same time, we were just growing in things. And so what we wanted to kind of lay out today was, it's funny, I sat in a class similar to this, at BYU, and as I sat there, I would often think, okay, I need to do what that guy did. I need to have a groundbreaking idea, something that's just pulled out of the air that no one's ever seen before. The light bulb, the automobile, something crazy, some kind of invention, or to really start a business. But what you'll see kind of as you go through this is that that's definitely not the path that we've taken. Things have happened more slowly. It's been more incremental, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So we'll go to the next slide here. So we're going to talk about this. 4 challenges that we've faced, 4 lessons, I guess you could say, that we've learned, 4 pivots we've had to make. And so let's jump in. Let's see. So awesome. So for us, it was kind of a unique and interesting challenge. So Sarah and I, it was cool because Sarah had done the whole piano route. She'd done all of it, whereas I was the one who, I went to a teacher in their basement, and it was just kind of creepy and weird, and I hated it, and so it was kind of, that was my perspective of like, okay, how could we have completely turned that around? And what we've kind of found was like, there was a path, but there wasn't very many that had taken that, and it was hard to compare that to. And as we've gone through, and if you look at any business, for example, they all follow businesses compete in 3 different areas, right? There's those that compete based on cost for the lowest cost model, right? There's those that try to differentiate and offer something completely unique and different, and that's how they compete, is in that space. And then obviously you have the niche part of where people compete, the smaller segment of stuff. So to kind of illustrate this, we put up some of our favorite restaurants.
Chicken.
and use chicken as an example, right? So you have Chick-fil-A. We all love Chick-fil-A, right? They obviously compete in the convenient, fast, low-cost, easy part of the market, right? Then you kind of move further down that, and you get to the differentiation, right? So Buffalo Wild Wings, for example, is a little bit more expensive, but the experience is completely unique. For us and our kids, if we just want to break from our kids for a little bit, we take them to Buffalo Wild Wings, and they get their chicken, and there's a million TVs, and they don't even look at us. They just watch sports, and we all hang out, and it's a cool, different experience, right, for everybody. And then last, it's kind of a stretch here, but niche, right? Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. If you're going to Ruth's Chris and getting chicken, something's wrong with you. But they do offer really high-end chicken there for like what, $100, $120 for a chicken meal. So it's just interesting how and I guess for Ruth's Chris too, they kind of take on more of a persona of like, this is a special event, right? It's an anniversary, it's a birthday. You might be coming here maybe 1 or 2 times a year. Maybe it's a big business deal. So for us, as we kind of looked at this same spectrum, right? There was only 2 other real competitors in that same, in our market with music education. We had our neighborhood, that slide got kind of messed up, neighborhood teacher, which, how many of you took lessons from a neighborhood teacher maybe growing up? Just down the street, or someone you knew, right? So we had our neighborhood teacher. There's a lot of them, right? And they're all over. And then the other path, and the other thing that we saw was kind of what Sarah said that she did when she was a senior, went after like that classical, rigorous, academic aspect of music education. So that we saw there's kind of only 2 paths. So to compare the 2, the house being the neighborhood teacher and the graduation cap being the academic route, there's pros and cons to each, right? So for the neighborhood teacher, they're affordable, they're local, they're really close to you. they're very easygoing, they're flexible with their schedule, almost to a fault with many of these teachers, and they can include a wide spectrum of learners, right? The cons can be that it can be inconsistent, right? Even when we ran a studio out of our house, it was like, hey, we're going on vacation, see ya, we'll see you in 2 weeks, It can lack professionalism. I keep going back to when we had our house. I'd come home and go to eat dinner, and she's teaching people. I'm trying to eat my meal in the kitchen, and they're next door, and it was just weird. Or trying to watch Monday Night Football, it just wasn't possible. So, and the opportunity and ability to scale isn't really there because they're so entrenched in just teaching. So they just focus on teaching. It takes up their whole day. And then if we flip this to the flip side, in the current market was you have the academic side or the rigorous side, right? So the great thing is they produce high quality musicians. I mean, period. That's the ultimate pro there. They're very consistent and thorough with everything they do. The cons, though, is it's very expensive, and it's not on a local basis. Sarah had to travel how far? 30 minutes, 40 minutes to get to her teacher, and that's not that's not uncommon. I mean, everybody has to do that if you're taking that route. And then it's the cons with it. I mean, it's very intense, and it also excludes a lot of different types of learners, right? There's certain people with learning disabilities or different aspects of it who obviously can't take or aren't going to pursue that route. So we saw that there was an opportunity, right, from this lowest in this, how we're talking here with the lowest cost, differentiation, and niche. And we thought the piano place could really fill where we saw a huge void in the market, which was to differentiate, to offer something completely different. I mean, when we thought about it more and more, it was like the academic side of things was the high end, and then the neighborhood teacher was kind of striving to be like that, but could never quite get to that point. So we were like, they're both kind of similar, so let's see how we can really change things up. So we kind of went into that, in our first year of business thinking, okay, we want something that's different. We want something that's not a one-track-fits-all model. We want it to, apply to many. We wanted to have awesome performance opportunities. This is not to knock on Sarah, she'll be mad at me for saying this, but I would go to her piano recitals, and it would be just in a little music hall, and they'd be 2 hours long, and I'd make it through maybe 30 minutes, and then I'd wake up about an hour 15 in and be like, oh, what did I miss? And they were hard, they were boring, so we wanted to change that. We wanted to make it a truly unique, awesome, engaging experience for recitals. We wanted to create instructors that were really fun, energetic, who were really passionate about what music meant to them, and to have them help instill that in our students. And then we wanted a place where all learners were celebrated, kind of as we mentioned before. And additionally, our biggest goal was to just breathe new life into what music lessons were. I didn't want that basement experience. I didn't want to be down there just plunking away, and then going home and being guilt-tripped for not practicing, enough times, or perfectly. We wanted to change that whole atmosphere of it. So one thing as we started to go, right, the first question that came up to us was, why would a teacher want to work for us? And the more we thought about it was, we would see all these teachers, and the hardest thing for them was they were, to earn the money, they had to be teaching, right? And if they were running their own business, they had to be teaching. And that's what they loved, right? They didn't want to deal with the business side of things. They didn't want to have to deal with collecting payment or, asking somebody for this or for that, or having to handle marketing. They just wanted to teach. And what we thought, and it was something we set up from the very get-go, and it was more by luck than anything, was just we were going to offer every service we could to our teachers to allow them to do just that. Be teachers, teach. And so that was what we started from the get-go, and that was something that we kind of instilled from the beginning. Yeah.
So the next challenge that we faced, we view it as trailblazing a new path. It's not like a pest control company where you can just look at what someone else's company is doing. There has not been one model that we could reference. And so everything we're doing, we're trailblazing and we're innovating. And so the second thing that we've come across is innovating. And I want to show you these two quotes really quick. This is by the founder of Walmart, Sam Walton, said, most everything I've done, I've copied from someone else. And then this is the co-founder of MTV. He says, innovation is taking two things that exist and putting them together in a different and new way. So that's what we set out to do.
We're the ultimate copycats.
We're the ultimate, but it's not knocking off anyone in our industry because there's no one to knock off. What we're doing is taking the best of the practices that we see in businesses that we love. We both go to Orange Theory and have for years. We noticed that every time we left Orange Theory, we got an email into our account letting us know how many calories we burned, how much time we spent in the orange zone, and we were like, whoa, that data motivates us to keep going. And so what we ended up doing is we created an app, and I'll talk a little bit about the app in just a second, but in addition to that, from Orange Theory, we have these studio promos. They would do these cool bingo events where we copied it, but we tailored it to music, and it's all the same. And then they also have their teachers wrap up at the end of the class during a cool down, and we have our teachers do the same thing. Our kids' pediatrician has themed lesson rooms, so we did the same thing. We went to a Coldplay concert a couple years ago, and we were so like, I don't know if you've been to one, but we're like, the experience is incredible, and we're like, how can we get this type of energy into our performances? So we've been working on that. And then I took my kids to Boondocks, and they're like so excited to spend their money at the little Boondocks store with their tickets. And so we've also implemented that with a store. When the kids practice, they earn dollars to a store, and it really helps our young students. So I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the innovations that we've implemented, and the first being that app, kind of going back to it. But basically, we sat down with a developer and we created an app that will help gamify music lessons, help give, like with Snapchat, streaks for practicing. The teacher can deliver feedback in real time. They can give the kid a badge like, way to go, face melter solo this week, or something like that. And so we love that data. So many people quit because they don't see results. And this is going to help point out, especially to our parents, what results are actually happening. The next thing is we created this Piano Place Juniors program. We wrote from scratch a curriculum similar to Kinder Music or Music Garden, but we pulled the best practices and what we really feel like sets kids up for success. We've also created our own custom learning materials, decks of flashcards, resources, different stuff like that that are proprietary to our studio. We created a podcast where now we're becoming thought leaders, and we're interviewing and we're gathering a community of musicians and telling their stories. And it's been really cool to see how our own students have reacted to that. It's kind of embarrassing. I'm wearing the same outfit. Sorry. Lastly, and Russ touched on this, but we, with COVID, really leaned in and innovated to remote lessons. And so, like he said, his niece lives on the East Coast, but she's taking lessons from us now. And this has opened up a completely new world. If we can market to the world on Facebook and not just our geographic locations, that changes everything for us. And so that's something we're really tapping into right now. Okay, Brady, take the wheel.
So going into, I guess if you go back, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
To, one of our third challenges here. So we talked about, our trailblazing, about our innovating was, okay, so now we're at this point, right, in our business where we had one location. We'd rented that first studio. Sarah proved me wrong. She likes to tell everybody that all the time. I was just a little scared, a little bit more conservative, right? But so we got to the point where we're like, okay, I think we have a model here. We have something cool here. How do we expand? And we talked to tons of people. What's the best strategy to go through? And we looked at different businesses and how they worked. And it was interesting to see. We talked to a myriad of service-oriented businesses, education businesses, retail, restaurants. There was only two ways that they were doing it, and we from the get-go knew that each market. So, for example, our second store was in Lehigh. We wanted to find who that market leader was, because there was definitely someone in every market. There's somebody like Sarah, right? They had 70 students. They're in their house. They're bursting at the seams. And so we were like, okay, how do we find this market leader? And so we found the person who identified, like, okay, this person, they're killing it. We talked to them a little bit, and we knew without a doubt, we were so impressed by her that we wanted to work with her. It wasn't worth competing, and with our industry too, it's like a snowball effect. You get students, and the more you get, the faster it goes. And so we knew we wanted that, and so we knew that we had to work with this person somehow. And so we were suggested two primary ways. The first was franchising.
Oh, sorry.
And the other was to do a partnership. And so as we went through kind of this process and kind of vetted out franchising, what we saw was, some negatives and some difficult things is, we're dealing with, if we want to work with the very best music instructors, sometimes music doesn't pay as well as a lot of industries, and so to build out these really nice studios, it takes a lot of capital, and for us it's it's a little over $250K, if not more, for some of our studios. You have to soundproof them, you have to do all sorts of stuff, and so for them to come up with that money in a franchise model where they have to put in that money to do it seemed a little bit difficult and unrealistic. They'd have to personally guarantee things. And for us, what we ultimately decided we didn't like about franchising is we gave up a decent portion of control of the business. And we wanted to be all in. We wanted to be all in with our people. We wanted to be partnered up and experience that. So we ultimately landed more on a partnership model for our growth and expansion. And so the way that we kind of do it is we come up with the money. We personally guarantee the leases. And we work together with the market leader, who ultimately becomes what we call our studio director. With our director, we work with them to run an awesome studio. And it's the way we like it. We seriously are able to provide the back-end stability and the operational aspects of the business, and we're able to help these studio directors run an awesome studio. It's honestly like they have, I compare it to this, it's like our studio directors, these market leaders have a small fire of a business, right? We're able to come in and throw rocket fuel on it and take them to a whole other level. And it's something that they've always wanted to do, and it's something that we are able to help kind of make those dreams come true for them as well. So who we are today is kind of that. It's been funny how it's evolved, right? We had our own studio in our house. We did a studio, and now it's been interesting to see kind of this divide. Like 3 years ago, we had 20 teachers, and I knew them all by name. I knew everything about them. I have to admit, I don't know everybody as well as I used to now that we have like 120. And so it's kind of evolved to where we have more of a corporate team. We have someone that does, for each aspect of the business. And what's been awesome about that, I guess going back to that graphic before, you saw the plug there, right? It's what I was saying is when we partner up and go into a new market, we find the person we want to work with. And our pitch ultimately is, hey, we've built this awesome back-end operation so that you can come in, you help us lead the studio, you help us lead the teachers. But what we do on our end for you is we have someone dedicated fully to recruitment and HR. We do all the marketing for you, and we put up all the money for that. We manage the construction of a new studio. We put the money in for the new studio. We guarantee all of the leases and things. We have operational procedures and things that we've put in place, and we have someone who's over operations who will train you and help you to help us direct and lead the studio. We check in. We have you come and be part of a group setting to do this. And so every aspect, we stock their stores. We do everything. We track their inventory. So everything for them, from the director standpoint, is they come in and they just help manage their teachers. They come in and they help train their teachers. They come in and they observe their teachers and give feedback so they can really focus on the music. They can really focus on the atmosphere, whereas we can provide that whole back-end service for them. And so it really becomes an awesome win-win relationship for both of us. And who we've become today is that is who we are. We're a corporate team. Our identity isn't so much, it's like that we're a piano studio. I see ourselves as a back-end operator for piano studios, or for music studios. And it's been awesome.
Cool, so we got to wrap up pretty quick here.
Yeah.
But we are fueled and motivated by one purpose only, and that is the mission of the studio. And on the way down, we're both like, oh crap, we can't talk about this because it makes both of us cry, but we're not going to cry. But Brady, you have a good analogy. Share your analogy.
No. So you can take away my man card right now, because both Sarah and I's favorite movie is The Sound of Music. Like on our first date, we geeked out about it. And we've been to Austria a few times just to see those Alps. But what we've this I guess came really to light. You know, you start a business and you have your head down and you're just working and everything's happening so incrementally, right? That you kind of lose track as to what sometimes your actual purpose is and what's the net effect that you're adding to the community. And for us, COVID was an awesome time for that. We were super fortunate during COVID that, you know, I thought we always prepared for it. Like, okay, the economy crashes and on top of that, a pandemic hit. We knew we were going to get hit first. We knew that the music lessons, we just both agreed, like, hey, we got to be prepared for this. And we're just so grateful to be here today because, and to be honest, when it hit, nothing happened. Our business actually grew. We opened up 2 studios in 2020. And the reason was, and to go back to it, it truly was that first week when the schools closed, we received multiple texts and emails from our parents saying, thank you for staying open. Thank you for continuing to do lessons over Zoom. We need music in our home right now. Music plays such a pivotal role in giving hope to people in their lives. And it was interesting. We've always done our recitals in person. And we'd always, and going back to Julie Andrews here, we'd always geeked out over, like, you know, what's so awesome about The Sound of Music, that story, is that Julie Andrews goes into, I guess Maria, goes into a cold house, right? There's things aren't going right, and she brings music into that home and completely changes that family forever. And now I get choked up. Yeah, there we go. No, I just have something in my throat. What's cool is so during COVID, we had a complete Zoom recital, right? And it was awesome to sit back. So everyone was playing their instruments in their house, and all their grandparents were in. There was, like, you know, 100, 200 people on each of these Zoom recitals. And we got to witness something amazing happening, that we had truly brought music into people's homes, just like Maria. And for us, it was so cool just to see, you know, that what music had done for these families, that it gave them something to be united around. It brought hope. And ultimately, I think that's our mission of the studio, is our main mantra is making more than musicians. And if we can have the success of bringing music into someone's home, then that means far more to me than any bottom line figure could ever mean.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know that we have time. We had one more video, but we're going to skip it. But I just wanted to reiterate the same exact thing. This making more than musicians, for us, it's about a lot more than just proficiency in an instrument. Something that we are so proud of is that we get to accommodate all different types of learners. Oh, and this is Jane, and I really can't even talk about her without crying, but she thrives at our studio. And we also just had a student get into Harvard on the merit of her piano. And so we are catering to both audiences, but more than anything, our Janes are what are motivating us, because the life lessons that you learn from music are so much more powerful than just the proficiency behind it. And so we did want to just open up for questions if you guys have any, and we might be over time, but okay, cool. Yeah.
So you sat down with an app developer to make that app. How much was it, and how long was that process to get that done?
Yeah, I was fortunate. My cousin was an app developer, so I worked with him. But you get what you pay for. Sometimes it takes some time, right? It was a side job for him, but for us, it ended up costing us about, I think, $12,000 to $15,000 to do it, which at least for my heroes on the low end.
It was probably a 6 to 8 month process from our first meeting to having something to turn over to our parents.
You have to beta test for months. I think
we're still refining.
The version we're on now is probably like 28 or something. I was just texting him just now about it. So yeah.
So as co-founders, did you guys find any problems like in your marriage or relationship because like you have working together?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's so hard. So hard. We're so different. Like, I'm really creative and a dreamer, and I want to tackle 1,000 things right now, and he's like, how much does that cost? And he's very realistic, and so we are a good balance in a lot of ways, but it's certainly been difficult, and it is difficult every day, but we're figuring it out.
It's funny, all my friends, have you seen Parks and Rec? Have you watched that?
So they always call her less than dope.
We've got a binder and color coordinated tabs, and Brady's got like 50,000 unread emails on his phone. And so we're just trying to balance our dynamic, but somewhere in the middle, there's sanity. Anything else? Yeah.
I was curious with your teachers, do you have like an application or a waiting list, or do you go into markets and find out who they are and invite them? How does that work?
Yeah, so we have an HR director. We do recruit and recruiting kind of halted with COVID. We weren't able to go into universities and get teachers, but we do pull heavily from BYU, Utah State, Weber State to get our teachers.
We love snow.
Yeah, we love snow. Come on over. Yeah. But that's kind of, so we do ads for teaching positions. And we do hire in at different price points. So we have like teachers with master's degrees coming in at a high price point. They're charging a lot more and we're paying them a lot more for their lessons. And then we also take our very best, like just out of high school students and hire them on to teach our littles, and we train them and we observe them. And sometimes parents want that cheaper price point option. And so that's kind of how we've been doing it. For a long time, it was just word of mouth. Me on the local Utah scene, DMing people, hey, would you want to teach? Like, we can teach you how to teach. Come on in. And now it's a lot more professional, if that makes sense, yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
You said you think you're going to have 10 locations by the end of this year, right? Is that,
Yes.
so are any of them outside of Utah?
Not yet, but we're gonna have to change our domain name, hopefully in 2023. Our goal, we are really excited about the markets, obviously in Utah, but in Idaho, in Arizona, in Texas. We think that we will do well there. And so Brady's background's in commercial real estate. He worked for Colliers International for a long time, and so he can pull our demographics and he can see what median income we need for it to make sense, how many kids in that age range. And once we see those, we go put them in next to their booming high schools, and we've found that they can't fail. People are loving, knock on wood, yeah. That's true. That was, I'm so sorry. No, but in our experience so far, because we know the Utah market and we both grew up here, we're putting him in, dropping him in by Davis High School, Skyridge High School, all these high schools that we know are booming, and we trust that they will perform if we do that. Anything else?
Okay, I do think we'll be in outside of Utah in the next
Hopefully, yeah, in 2020.
some conversation we're having.
And I mean, that was kind of, you kind of answered it already, but I mean, like the cultural differences in states, is that going to, do you think, be a challenge? Because, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's something that my cocky statement will get me in trouble for, because we don't know the behaviors of the spenders in the other markets. We don't know if they value music lessons like our Utah market does. And so it will be interesting. That's something I think we're going to tackle as it comes. But we sights set on Vegas, Gilbert, Arizona, Idaho Falls. Those are the places that we hope to get to very soon. Yeah.
How do you determine the locations you're going to put your stores?
So some of them have been demographics based.
They're all demographics based.
But some of them have been us having a relationship with one of the market leaders, like finding a teacher who we're like, dang, they're killing it. And we have typically seen them as a competitor, but rather than a competitor, we'll contact them and say, hey, like, are you interested in being a leader on a team that's much bigger than, you know, your little operation? And I know because I've been there, but that's what I think, that's what kind of dictates. So right now we've got a girl in St. George who contacted us and is like, we're ready. Like, we're ready. I've got my students. Let's go. And so we just drove down this past weekend and found a site. So that's kind of what dictates where we're going right now. But eventually, once we build out our corporate team a little bit more and have a little bit more like resources funding wise, I think we could get more intentional with where we go.
Probably end
Yeah.
there, so.
Okay. Well, thank you guys. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.